As indeed there was between the Queen and her. Great rich mix of military heritage before our eyes. Royal Marines, armed forces from the Commonwealth countries, the Household Cavalry. And among this part of the procession too, the heads of the armed forces. We spoke this morning to Admiral Tony Radakin, who's head of all the armed forces, and his hope that this procession would be impeccable and a fitting tribute to Her late Majesty. I don't think anyone would question that. Blues and Royals, followed by the drum horse and the state trumpeter. They make their way gradually towards Wellington Arch and Hyde Park Corner. And there we have the Commonwealth Memorial Gates with the flames. We see the procession making its way towards this part of central London, which is near the gardens of Buckingham Palace, and what is normally a very busy section of Hyde Park Corner. Today it's solemn and silent in this funeral procession to the left there. The Honourable Artillery Company approaching part of the representation of the British Army in this procession. Flanking the Queen's Coffee. On either side we have the bearer party from the Queen's Company, 1st Battalion Grenadier Guards, with the distinctive white plumes, the gentlemen at arms behind them, equally distinctive in their Tudor uniform and worn today. In front of the band of these Scots Guards and Austrian Guards, just about a view there of the Earl Marshal, gentleman with the glasses, the Earl Marshal, Duke of Norfolk, the man who's in charge of the organisation of state events, state funerals, coronations. It's a hereditary role. It's the 18th Duke of Norfolk, and he's the one who's shouldered a lot of the responsibility for making sure that this state funeral happens in accordance with Her Majesty's wishes. And then in the centre, with the white plumes, we have the Major General commanding the Household Division, troops of the London District, Major General Christopher Geek, who's in command of all the troops in procession today and elsewhere, lining the route, taking part, not just in the procession itself. The great funeral marches, so familiar, of course. Mendelssohn and Beethoven, Chopin. This state gun carriage, which has been in the Navy's care since 1901, was first reserved for the funeral of Queen Victoria. George VI, 70 years ago. Regiments of foot guards, their distinctive tunics, Welsh, Irish, Scots and Grenadiers, and the costume guards. Royal officers, the Royal Engineers, also in the procession. This is the scene at Wellington Arch, which stands right in the middle of Hyde Park Corner. The ancient home of the Duke of Wellington nearby. And the Wellington Arch named because of that connection. At one stage, the arch was planned as the main entrance to Buckingham Palace, but as with Marble Arch, things were changed at a later date. And this is where we will have a gathering of thousands of members of the armed forces for this final part of the ceremony in London, where the Queen's coffin will be transferred from that gun carriage to the state hearse, which will be waiting to take the Queen home to Windsor. deeply poignant moment in this procession. As Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II approaches Buckingham Palace for the last time. On this fine September day, with patches of blue at the sky, and London skyline looking glorious in the background. And here we have words for the late Queen, and a last glimpse of that famous balcony that she appeared on so many occasions. And this privilege of having another from the Queen at the end of the Second World War, cheered on by the vast crowds who we see today. And the vast crowds again here, and the young Queen's crowned. But Buckingham Palace was always the office, and here we have the start of the palace. A great line of them standing in silence and respect as they wait for this procession to pass with the late Queen. And we think here of the four memorable jubilees during the reign. We look at that balcony and all the delight and joy and celebration of those times. Memories, of course, shared by the royal family and all of the royal household in today's procession, and millions watching wherever they're watching around the world, who remember those occasions with equal joy. Party. Also the service equerries who have been part of the Queen's service. Leaving Buckingham Palace behind and slowly advancing towards Hyde Park Corner and that transfer in readiness for the journey to Windsor, the journey by road. Contrast to the event of 70 years ago when George VI was taken in procession from Westminster Hall to Paddington Station. There was no service at Westminster Abbey. The service in full was at St George's Chapel, Windsor. King George made the journey from London to Windsor by train, in the Royal train. But arrangements this time are different, and the decision was made to take the Queen from London to Windsor by road in the State Hearse. Procession passing just on the left there, the great gardens of Buckingham Palace, where so many of those garden parties took place over the years, thousands of them. So many people being delighted to be asked, just once in most cases, to enjoy the gardens and indeed, if they were fortunate, to have a few words with Her Majesty during the garden party itself. And then on the other side we have Green Park. Members of Her Majesty's household taking their part proudly in the procession. Sound of Bentonia right across central London, punctuated with the sounds of the King's Troop on Hossatona, firing their long gun salute. And they've been based principally at Hyde Park for this firing stage during this procession. Park. There are 2 guns also being fired at Hyde Park Corner, dismounted guns, as part of this last formal section of this procession today in London, before a separate procession takes place at Windsor later on. Vice Chamberlain and the Treasurer of the Royal Household, part of this group representing those who served in Majesty. A scene that will touch the hearts of everyone watching, I'm sure. As we look at the close family, children of the late Queen, led by the King, grandchildren, as they know full well that within minutes it will be the moment for the late Queen to see them and to head back home to Windsor. London, of course, the city of the Queen's birth. And we are just a matter of a few yards away here from the Queen's childhood home on Piccadilly. magnificent view of Wellington, of the greenery, and in this busy part of London. And all the armed forces formed up for this final ceremony. Carriage will be taken under the arch, and from there the transfer to the state hearse will take place. So many elements of strong tradition worked into the about to happen from the fighting party that we heard at the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral last year. A very strong echo of the Duke of Edinburgh's life at sea. And of course, from the Queen's point of view, tribute to her late father, King George VI, and his experience during the First World War at the Battle of Jutland. Very challenging experience at sea. And of course, the Duke of Edinburgh himself with his wartime service in the Second World War. Which is draped over the Queen's coffin. That final committal takes place in St. George's Chapel. And then those emblems of Her Majesty's authority will be set on the altar at St. George's Chapel. Under the arch they go. Her Majesty's coffin on that carriage to be sheltered under that arch. Transfer will take place. Moments that few of us will ever forget, I'm sure. National anthem played as Her late Majesty was taken from Wellington Arch and is now on the way to Windsor after a very moving service at the Abbey and some clearly expressed messages, including those of the Archbishop of Canterbury, about the Queen's life of service and dedication, a sense of duty, and then the magnificent, solemn, moving procession all the way from the Abbey to Wellington Arch. And there are crowds on the streets here approaching Knightsbridge, lots of them offering floral tributes, others just maintaining a dignified silence. Come to see their Queen for the last time as she leaves London. Katie Nicholl and Robert Hardman are still with me here in the studio looking at these scenes, and they've been watching the procession and the service before that. Katie, as we see the Queen's final departure from the capital, I suspect that these are the images that will stay with people for years to come.
I don't think anyone that watched that, Hugh, will ever forget it. And you said during your commentary, so many memories, and that's what struck me as I watched that procession past those landmarks that have punctuated the Queen's life and punctuated ours, because we look forward to Trooping the Colour and those birthday parades. You know, I look at my life and it's been marked by the silver, the time, the gold, all these wonderful jubilees.
Because it's been a spectacular and as we said earlier, unprecedented gathering of not just world leaders, but of all these armed forces from around the world. This is a ceremony unlike anything, really, as you said earlier, since the funeral of George VI, possibly since the coronation. And it's all gone exactly as the Queen would have wanted. She paid a great deal of attention to all of this, and she would have been so pleased to see it just go the way it's gone. And I think a wonderful contrast between the solemnity and the formalities we had a little earlier, and now just look at the capital coming out. I mean, they are 20, 30, 40, 50 deep places, the whole of Hyde Park, and now this is the sort of on her way to the other part of all of this, which will be, I think, rather more intimate.
Last night it was a glorious rainbow over London when we were preparing for today, and today it's a sunny day in September, and crowds really are not gloomy. People have said, and life of 96 years is something to be celebrated. Of course, the Queen will be missed, but people understand that there's a lot here that needs to be said about everything that was achieved over that long lifetime. And that's really why I think that people have wanted to come out. It's a mark of thanks as well, not just admiration. It's saying thank you as well as farewell.
It is, Hugh, and I suspect had it been pouring with rain, everyone that's standing out there today would still have done it in all weather.
It would be very British.
It would be terribly British, but I think the fact that as the coffin left the Abbey and the clouds parted and the sun came down, it was a wonderful moment to see that spectacle bathed in the sunshine, and those rainbows that you picked out, I think, struck so many people. The double rainbow of Buckingham Palace, the rainbow of Windsor Castle. We'll all be looking out for a rainbow later on today.
Indeed we will. And as you were saying, Robert, we're in a position where we are reflecting what's gone today, but of course we're also looking ahead to the final part of this state funeral. And these people are clearly out to say goodbye and thank you for all you've done.
They are, and here we see Her late Majesty coming past the memorial to Prince Albert, that extraordinary memorial, 150 years old this year, the Albert Memorial, which Queen Victoria spent so much love on. I mean, it makes you think, what on earth are we going to put up to commemorate this extraordinary monarch who is leaving the capital for the last time? But, everything about it today, there was a sort of timelessness to it. We saw the troops massing in front of Wellington's old house at Hyde Park Corner. It could have been the 19th century. I mean, and yet we have all these sort of modern aspects to it. It's been a brilliant blend of ancient and modern today. And there is 21st century Britain saluting really one of the greats.
It's a wonderful parallel, isn't it, to be passing the Royal Albert Hall, because of course all those years that the Queen was determined to attend the Festival of Remembrance on Remembrance Weekend, the eve of the Remembrance service at the Cenotaph, the buzz among 5,000 people in that hall when she arrived at just before 7 o'clock on Saturday evening was remarkable, with people really feeling that the Queen's authority and the Queen's blessing on what was happening was indispensable. It wasn't the same event. It isn't the same event, won't be the same event without her, although of course the King will, already has impressed lots of people with the way that he's
everyone wanted an imprimatur on these events. And wasn't it wonderful the way the procession took in almost all the great memorials, all the way through, not just the Cenotaph and the Women of War, but up to Hyde Park Corner. There's the New Zealand War Memorial, the Australian War Memorial. I mean, every aspect of shared sacrifice, I think, has been recognised today through this exemplary procession.
I was really struck as well, Katie, by the way in which the procession, the initial procession, which arrived at the Abbey in silence, a sense of expectation with deep respect. The service itself really did underline lots of the themes that Her Majesty wanted to have underlined. She was, of course, a woman of strength. The decisions that she made in her, the way that she.
You're absolutely right. We saw the fate of Becky in that service, and leading to that coronation. There was everything that was so carefully thought out and appreciated the most important things in her life: her faith, the armed forces, her family, her people. It's all there, and I think also that sense. Yes, we have lost something very, very special to all of us. This is a testament to that. But in all of this, as what it says, the tradition and the history and the landmarks, everything that's wrapped into this, is the promise of the new, it's the continuity. And we've seen that in the past 11 days, extraordinary days, the new kings we welcome. But we saw that in the procession with Prince George and Princess Charlotte, that promise of the future, that promise of what's next to come. And I think that's reassuring, particularly at the moment.
Yes, the presence of Princess Charlotte there, a reminder of some of the extraordinary changes that the late Queen made during her reign. I mean, it was only in 2011 she changed hundreds, thousands of years of male primogeniture, so that, you know, the line of succession has changed. All these little, that's so much. I mean, when historians look back on this reign, they'll see so many small ways in which, very quietly but very firmly, she completely transformed this institution. And I also love the way today that the procession, it wasn't just about recognising her. I mean, obviously clearly it was, but in her way, when she organised it, she wanted to recognise others. I thought the way in which she placed the Victoria Cross and the George Cross holders right at the front of that procession, for example, that was so her. You know, the George Cross, the great decoration invented by her father at the height of the war. You know, all these little things. There's a lot of nods, I think, to her parents in that.
And to the Commonwealth,
Oh, yeah.
the Mounties. I mean,
Mounties,
it was all there, down to the NHS workers and everyone that helped us through the pandemic.
Most recent recipients of the George Cross, of course, the NHS.
A last word then from us before we go to our colleagues at Windsor for the next phase of the day. And Katie, you first of all. It's impossible to start really assessing neatly and credibly this remarkable reign so early on. Distinguished authors both, it's a challenge to do something like that. Do you feel that today will have helped people maybe turn the page, to just realise that great change is happening and that they can take that on board? Is today the day when people will be helped in that direction?
I think so. I think this is the moment that completes 11 extraordinary days, and you could plan and rehearse and do it all over again. You couldn't predict how the public were going to respond, what the mood would be, and it's been phenomenal. But this is closure today, and I think that's what the Queen said in her very first voice as well during the Blitz. All will be well, because it will.
Robert, is today the day when that happens? Because it's been 10 days of people really trying to come to terms with such a momentous change in public life and in personal lives.
I think what we've seen today, we have seen the embodiment of greatness from the world leaders gathered to what we're seeing now, an entire nation coming out. This is greatness in our time, and that greatness is really down to this extraordinary monarch, her life shaped by three people in particular: her father, her darling father, her beloved mother, and of course her beloved Philip. And I just think it is so powerful that here she is, she's been away, and after all this grandeur and greatness, tonight she'll be reunited with them for eternity.
Well, we are looking at the progress of the procession of the State Hearse to Windsor, to the royal town of Windsor, where the final committal will take place a little later this afternoon, and our coverage continues. We will be following the journey, Queen's last journey out of London, to her home at Windsor Castle, and then we'll be following the new procession that will take place at Windsor, and of course the service at St. George's Chapel. And as we look at the vehicles making their way, and the State Hearse in particular, you can see the bright colours of the Royal Standard and the crown and the orb and scepter, telling everyone along the way that this is Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, a Christian of conviction who, more than anyone, understood the message of the preacher, which is that there is a time and season to all things, a time to be born and a time to die. Queen understood that as part of the natural rhythm of life and the natural transition of the great constitution that she's upheld over many, many years. She's returning home to Windsor. Let's join Kirsty Ann.
Yes, and so the grand and exquisite ceremonial tableau of that magnificent state occasion gently recedes into the background as the Queen's coffin makes its way now through London and out towards Windsor. Welcome to the splendour of Windsor Castle, the near 1,000-year-old home of royalty and the backdrop to many great battles and grand banquets. But today sees maybe its most momentous event, the burial of our longest reigning monarch, Queen Elizabeth II. The Queen will this afternoon finally be laid to rest in St George's Chapel alongside her beloved parents, sister and husband. So many days of grand public ceremony will come to an intimate ending as Her Majesty passes into history. We'll see the Queen's coffin making its journey towards Windsor, and the committal service will be attended by the King, the rest of the royal family, and also Her Majesty's closest friends. Windsor Castle is certainly exquisitely grand and imposing, but it's also a place where the Queen, then of course a little princess, played as a toddler. Well, the town of Windsor is streets have taken on a new the edges of the long wall are carpeted with bouquets of flowers. And the thousands of visitors, some local and many more from far-flung corners of the globe, are quietly positioning themselves to take one last look at Her Majesty's coffin. Event.
I suppose the way to see this afternoon's service is that if what happened at Westminster Abbey was the grandeur of a state coming to what's going to happen to a family. Kirsty was saying the Queen is going to be interred here along with the Queen Mother, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, Princess Margaret, and will lie with other sovereigns going way back to Henry VI in 1471. Since the sovereign coming back to the place where our sovereigns, or many of our sovereigns, lie. But on the other hand, the congregation is going to be very different here. People sitting here now, the Pope's elders were not in Westminster Abbey, they were assembled here, and they are a different kind of congregation, much smaller. They include, for instance, many of the Queen's godchildren. They include thousands of people who work on the Queen's estate, whether in Scotland, or in Norfolk, or in London. Some of them wearing, you see that, the Royal Victorian Order, which several people here are wearing, and that's the order that's in the personal gift of the Queen, only given to people who have worked for her, and it's her decision whether they should have it. So, what we'll see here is a quite different service, but with this momentous ending to it, which Hugh was talking about earlier on, the moment when the instruments of monarchy that were presented to her in Westminster Abbey at the coronation are removed from the top of the coffin and returned to those 3 cushions you can just see in the far distance on the altar of St. George's Chapel. The banners, of course, here are of the royal hanging splendidly all the way down. The Garter Knights who provide the banners, 24 of them in all, and then the royal family as well. So this chapel not only serves the purpose of being a chapel of Windsor, but also of the Order of the Garter, founded in 1348 by Edward III. So history here, just as in Westminster Abbey, history here is present for this momentous afternoon.
Well, I'm joined now in our studio by the very
Probably
well-known
all to do with that.
face, the gardener and broadcaster, Alan Titchmarsh. Thank you very much for taking the time, especially since this is a personal day for you too, because you knew the Queen, you met her on very many occasions. What are your thoughts today as you've watched, as we've all watched, almost spellbound by some of those images?
I've been so moved, Kirsty, by the fact that we've all come together, as she said we would, and we must. And there's been this enormous sense of togetherness created for us by
Yeah, but if you, I told him I'll give him the
Majesty,
box, and if he
the
takes it
Queen.
regularly, it should be
And the
okay.
fact that the streets were so
He takes it
lined,
continuously.
that Westminster Abbey was full of the great and the good. But we were there too, in spirit and in many thousands in person. And she has pulled
Yeah,
us all
it's got- he's
together.
just- he
over the
probably
years.
seen
And I
most of his
felt also an
limitations.
enormous sense of continuity. We all thought, oh my goodness me, what will happen when the Queen goes? The
Go
Queen
on,
has
go
got
to
to
Abbey
safe.
again.
I feel as though we've all come together to say we're all right. You know, it will be okay. She gave us 70 years on the throne. We've
Come
learned
in,
from
sir.
her. We will not disappoint her. We will carry on. We will be positive, and we will remember her with enormous fondness.
One little thing to me on the report, and indeed there was, but I was really so rosaries and drainers and daisies, oak leaves. It seemed to me it was a very, very personal touch, and I just wondered, you with your gardener's eye, what you meant of that.
Our history was in that wreath. There were oak leaves there. There were oak trees in Windsor Great Park that were growing here and were mature when William the Conqueror in 1666. Still isn't it, that famous military song? The oak leaves, rosemary, as you say, for remembrance, English roses. And the Prince of Wales, as you know, as I know, is a great gardener. And it was his wreath there, his message we went to his wife. A keen really loved. She loved spontaneity of the favourite primroses. They're sort of humble flowers, rather like Alexander. She liked what she called poor little flowers, really small little flowers. And it was a great reminder that one of the lasting great legacies from the Queen was the Queen's green canopy. That carries on. It is of small consolation to me that the first words my sovereign ever spoke to me in 1985 at the Chelsea Flower Show, when I did a cottage garden, she said to me, first time she'd ever spoken, ever met her, she said, your onions are very small. And she must have seen I was crestfallen. She went on to say, I like them small. When they're large, they taste of nothing at all.
She's quite right, bracingly frank. What about what she gave you your MD? And people always say, well, you know, I don't really talk about what she said. Well, maybe now, maybe today is the day to talk about what she said. What was the conversation?
Well, I'd had the great joy. It was 2000. It was the millennium, New Year on it. I'd been given the MD. And in that January, when I knew I got it, I was asked to go to Sandringham to talk to the Sandringham WI. Only about 25 members and the Queen in the front row. And I remember standing up to address this AGM. The Queen was right in front of me. And I said, oh, man, we're awfully close, aren't we? And so she took over the table, the trestle table, and she said, yes, you pull, I'll push. And then I had a lovely time. You know, when you can make the Queen laugh, when you could make the Queen laugh, and she threw her head back, it was genuine laughter and the smile that we all know. And then when I came to my investiture in June, I thought, well, I wonder if she'll say anything about it. And I went up and had to my bow, and she said, are you busy? I thought, I was a bit disappointed, you know, it was a bit general, but I thought, no, she sees a lot of people, she can't remember everything. And I told her what I was doing, television and writing. And at the end, the hand came out, and as she shook my hand, she said, well, she said, you give a lot of ladies a lot of pleasure.
She never did.
Well, I didn't really realise until somebody said to me, so did she say? And I said, and she said, what? And so I was going home in the car with my wife and I said, you know, I couldn't make up my mind whether to be buried or cremated. I'd quite like to be buried because I like a headstone and on said like Alan Titchmarsh, MBE, 1949 to whatever. He gave a lot of ladies a lot of pleasure, Elizabeth R.
Well, she
Forgive
wasn't
me,
wrong, was she, Alan?
No.
Extraordinarily, you saw, as he was then, Prince Charles, the night before he was about to become king. A normal night, a special, it must have presumably been a special night, Prince Charles was there.
It was at Dumfries House, up in Ayrshire, and I've been an ambassador to the Princess Trust and Princess Countryside Fund for a long time. I've also been, since its formation, an ambassador for the Princess Foundation, which does a huge amount of work, and particularly up in that part of Scotland and around Dumfries House. 12,000 people a year went all kinds of skills. And I was up there to have a look round, and I saw the Prince in the morning and ran across the London and said hello, and we had a quick chat, and he said, you know, perhaps you could do the estate walk with me tomorrow, which, as it turned out, I couldn't do, but it's another story, isn't it? We had a dinner in the evening, and it was relative, about 50 people there, so it was quite intimate. And after dinner, we had coffee.
All right, folks, I'm going to have a little bit of a break for lunch.
Music.
I will catch you all a bit later on. Thanks for joining. Catch you on the next one.
Guitarist to have off champagne.